This episode of Ticket Volume is brought to you by us, InvGate. Get service operations under control in no time. Get 1 free month of our software solution by going to try.invigate.com. Ticket Volume brings you a consultant, author, co-host of the Enterprise Digital Podcast, ITIL4 architect, SDI standards author, and he's also served as the CEO for ITSM UK and many more positions, from head of Axios Global Services to help desk manager to a computer operator and even a professional musician. Welcome to Ticket Volume, news and information for improving IT experiences. I'm your host, Matt Barron, and each week I chat with different leaders to share insights on service management, technology, and business. This episode, no exception. And cheers to you, our audience. What are you looking to learn about? Leave a comment, connect with us, or share our podcast with someone. Now, let's begin. Welcome, Barclay Rae.
Well, hello, Matt. How are you? Good to see
Very
you.
good. Good to see you as well. Thank you for taking the time to be on. I'm
My pleasure.
actually very excited to have you on, which is sort of, maybe a surprise because not many people are getting excited around Barclay because you're best known for your calm demeanor, your thoughtful and careful leadership in this industry. So let's talk about that a little bit. What you've been around for a while, right? Like I saw computer operator in your LinkedIn profile. So what's the deal? Why don't you get excited about new ideas?
I do get excited about ideas. I just don't process them in such a way that I have to jump up and down. I was born and brought up in Scotland, where we are conditioned and indoctrinated to not be excited about things unless it's alcohol or unhealthy food. These two things go together. I can get very excited about a macaroni pie, for example, or a square sausage, or anything that's it's got a bit of a fizz in it. But no, I mean, I it's just the way I am. I am generally quite positive, I think.
I know.
I try to be, but my background and my upbringing constantly rails me back to say, well, just don't, just calm down. What are you doing? Why are you getting? And I suppose I tend to be, positively skeptical. Put it that way. I embrace new ideas and have continued to do that for many years. But always look at them from the point of view of, right, well, is this really going to work? Is it something that can be incorporated? And I kind of eschew or react against the culture of, well, everything's new and it's going to change. And if anybody says to me, such and such is dead, service desk is dead, IT's dead, operations are dead, service management's dead, ITIL's dead, DevOps is dead. First of all, it probably means it's not, and then secondly, usually whoever's saying it has got a reason to say it, some kind of agenda, something to sell, So that's why I might be a little bit taciturn at times. But hey.
That's how we learn. That's how we grow. I love that. That really is a good point. I always said cautiously optimistic. You say positively skeptical. I think that's what makes us a good team. That's what makes a good team, is having multiple different ideas. Some people see ideas and think that they're the cat's pajamas. We definitely should be thinking about them. And there are other people who will say, look, we've tried this before. Let me tell you a story. What are you going to learn from this situation? And one of the best pieces of advice I ever got in my entire life was to just don't get too excited. Stuff is going to
And you've been reacting against that ever since,
I've been fighting that advice ever since.
Yeah.
And you see with ChatGPT, lots and lots of people got super excited, and now more and more people are getting burnt out from the idea that it's going to actually save us from ourselves, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely embrace some of the things that you can do with that. And even on our podcast a few weeks ago, we had a poem that was written by ChatGPT. And it was awful, but it was quite impressive at the same time. And I suppose you just have to view how these things. I mean, there's so much about the marketing and the new, the marketing of the new, and the, the king is dead, long live the king. We move on. We have to move on. We have moved on significantly, but I think there's to me, and I know we'll probably talk a little bit about this idea of sustainability, but I think the best things in terms of evolution and in terms of progress are when you can incorporate things in a way that actually works and doesn't kill everything else behind it. You have the need to. So, I mean, sometimes it's quite daunting because for example, with AI and all this, I was actually listening to a medical professor on the radio the other day, and he was talking about the opportunities with AI, and data. And data is the big thing, of course, going forward. But actually, if we were able to use the data that we already have in healthcare, for example, and in the UK, the NHS, biggest healthcare organization in the world, the third biggest organization in the world, behind the Chinese army and the Indian army, whatever it is, huge amount of data. But actually, we have got quite a strange attitude towards it because there's all the kind of process and regulation around how we use data. And he said there's a contradiction there because actually most individuals have got a very kind of lax attitude towards their own data, the way that they use things like social media. And actually, if that attitude was then applied to the way that they use, big data, he said it would be beyond transformational because there's so much knowledge and information there. All the clues to how you cure things are already there in the data, but we just don't have the access to it. And the solution to that is not to go, right, well, let's just change everything. You need to make some big moves, of course, but actually you've got to find a way of it. And it's the same with the planet. The only way we're really going to make progress on the planet is by getting people involved and they move up the chain and they actually get progress rather than saying, and I don't belittle anybody who progress. I respect people who protest, but you glue yourself to a motorway. It has, it makes a bit of a noise, but it doesn't actually change the way people think. And the way you change people think is by doing it with them and working overtime. I'm sure you'll come up with a completely plausible answer to that proposition. And so the way, the dinosaurs were wiped out, by one asteroid. That's fine. But it took blooming 65 million years after that for us to get anywhere. So I think we were talking about technology and the progress. We've got to do it in a way that brings people with us and not by killing everybody behind us and saying, you guys are wrong. This is out. They get with it, or move. And we've seen that happen for years.
Yeah. I think the way that you paint this is perfect. We used to say it in consulting all the time. You have to meet the client where they are. You can't just throw away their entire history, everything they've worked on. You can't throw away that context. You need to meet them where they are and then grow from there. And the same thing goes for technology. You can't just say the cab is dead and then have no way of managing change in an IT environment. We still need that value. That value stream still has to exist in some shape or form. Just that the processes that support it are going to look different. You're still going to get that same value, decreased risk, improved communication, whatever. Governance overall, but take what you have, put on the new layer, the new whatever, the new exciting, and then figure out where you're going from there.
But maybe what we do is just remove marketing from everything. That's easier because they very often are the culprits. I mean, people pick up on it and go, right, okay, well, cab is dead. I mean, that's a particularly inflammatory example to use, as we all know, because it was the source of a lot of discord for many years. And, looking at it objectively, there was value in both sides of that, because, the way that cabs were being run was poor and was wrong and was misconceived. So people, of course, would then be going, well, what? But, to then stand up and say, right, well, I'm going to kill the cab in front of 2,000 people and everybody cheering. And then, on many occasions, me going into organizations, talking to people, and they were going like, well, you're one of those guys. You're one of those ITSM guys. Get out of here. I don't want to talk. Well, sorry. Do we need to talk about change? If you are going to make change, are we just going to do it and not actually even discuss it?
Yeah,
of
exactly.
Course. So does it matter what we call it? If we call it, Chicken Shack, or, I don't know.
Change advisory board. Let's call it change advisory board.
Just for talking's sake.
Just for fun.
Does it matter? And actually the important bit is that we have the meeting. We discuss things, stuff comes out of it, and so on. And thankfully over time we've come round to that, the cab is not dead. The cab is working better. So maybe there's been some impact to that, but hopefully that would have happened anyway. My favorite example that I've probably told people a lot of the time was going to see, I was taken by IBM to see this service desk of the future. And there used to be an ad in the UK for, it was actually for Carlsberg beer, but it was this phone ringing out in a old, dirty office. And it kept ringing out, and then somebody eventually found it and answered it, and it was a wrong number. And then you saw wiped away the dust on the door, and it was the complaints department. And it was like, well, they don't need the complaints department anymore because they fixed everything, Great. And it was meant to be a bit like that this new service desk of the future was quiet, calm, aesthetically pleasing, no stress, low light, people sitting, enjoying time and space. And of course, it was a complete, and it was like, this is what it's going to be. And, the service desk that it's gone. I was like, okay, right, fair enough. But that was in 1990, Matt. Now, if I go into 95% of the service desks that I work with now and have done for years, none of them are like that. Actually, more recently, some of them are, because they don't really exist anymore as a room of people. It's people sitting at home, hanging on to their dog because they're stressed out or cold or whatever. But, just the idea that you go from that to saying, well, this is dead. And, we've got the same thing at the moment with the whole experience management thing. Experience management, brilliant, absolutely. Part of what we do, and, it's something that's not new. It's been around a long time. It's been around in different industries for a while. And you mentioned the SDI standard that I'm involved with. And we've had that as part of that program, as HDI have as well as part of their. But we've had that for 20 years. We've been doing experience management for 20 years. And it's a really important part of what organizations do, but it's not going to, it's not that, right, that means you just throw away everything else.
Exactly.
I mean, ITSM or ITIL, whatever it is, I don't care what you call it, is dead. It just means it's being supplemented and improved and developed, And so we get excited about those things. I'm actually quite excited about the way that experience management is at the moment and is developing, but it's still developing, and it's not going to just suddenly go, right, well, let's just chuck everything away and we'll start again and we'll call it experience management. No.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how it evolves, because of course, like, it's going to change the processes. It's going to change, the experience is going to improve. Let's hope. But it'll be interesting to see how experience management changes as it gets applied. You see companies like NextThink doing some really innovative stuff around just capturing what's happening on the actual machines that our users are using. And I think it's kind of the same thing with ChatGPT. People are just wondering, how expensive is this going to be? Is it going to be accessible to everyone? Are all companies going to be changing like this, or is this just for, the bougie, the few rich companies, the people who have the monopolies to be able to leverage this kind of thing, or is it going to make it to everyone?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the ChatGPT thing is interesting. I mean, actually, you see these things coming through different waves. I mean, we've had various types of responsive AI for some time,
Yes.
and it's there in things like Outlook. It's just very, very subtle.
Uh-huh.
But, actually for a little while now, I mean, I find it quite useful where it's actually read what's in the email and it's come
Yes.
up with the potential. Yes, that works for me. Thanks. Cheers. Or can I help? Or thanks for the offer, but can I help you with this? And
Yep.
9 times out of 10, I don't use it. Sometimes I do, and it's really easy to use. It's great. But that's a practical application of that coming through the thing, and that's really useful. I mean, I think you mentioned the tools side. I think on experience management, the tools really are the thing that's new and it's made a difference, that you can measure endpoint. You can really get that detailed level of understanding without it being forced, without you having to go and ask them survey questions. I think the survey questions are still useful, but that data needs to be supplemented. Just on its own, it's not enough, I think.
Yeah, we saw that with the new NPS. There's a new Net Promoter Score 3 or something like that, that not only are you supposed to ask 1 through 10, but you're also supposed to look at their patterns. Are they using new features in the tool? Have they shared your experience with a colleague or with a family member? Tons of good options there. But what I'm more curious about is your perspective on the basics then, right? Because we've seen these trends that come and go. Experience is a good one. Like, that's a great example of something that's been around forever, but is suddenly in vogue for some reason. But what are some of the basics that you have seen in your past that have really provided a ton of value that we shouldn't lose sight of, that we should be refocusing on and reinvesting in?
Well, they keep coming around. I mean, in the last 2 or 3 years in particular, I mean, I've been doing a huge amount on some of those things like problem management, service catalog, knowledge, good metrics, those kind of 4, which are all really, I suppose, are sort of based around how we improve, properly how we improve. So the whole kind of CSI, I call it the CSI cycle, the metrics, problem management, knowledge, something like that. Catalog is more sort of gives that the structure, if you like. But I think positively that there's been an understanding or appreciation that these things are useful, and in a more fundamental way, that really gives value. When talking about tool sets, I'm sure you're the same as me, that you're amazed that the size of the market is still what it is. I don't mean in terms of buying, I mean in terms of the number of products and vendors.
It's unreal.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I can't keep them straight. Every day I find a new one.
And why do people keep cycling right? Why do organizations? I've been to some organizations that have had 7 different service management cycles, and you'd think they would have got it by now, that actually it's not you, honey. It's me. They need to think about how they're. So that's another back to basics that I've been doing a lot of, is sort of readiness. What do you need to do to think about how you're going to be successful with these tools? And it ultimately does come back to, do we know what our services are? We're going to build them first, and then rather than just diving in and doing incident management, how are we going to capture knowledge and so on? All those kind of things really, really important, because the vendors, I don't know a newer vendor, but I'm sure you work with your organizations to do the best for them, and that's the idea.
Yeah,
But,
exactly.
understanding what they are trying to do and helping them to do it at whatever level, not just, well, we only do this, or this is how we do it, and we do everything for you. These are the two extremes, and somewhere in the middle, there's actually a balance where people need to learn how to do it themselves, but they need some help.
Yeah.
So those things have been really coming through really quite strongly in the last few years. Organizations realizing that they need to do this, that they are collaborative, that they are team, organization-wide activities, not just, well, we'll give it to somebody to do it and then they'll do it. It just doesn't work. People aren't bought in, they don't understand it.
Right.
And, things like problem management, for example, are completely transformational if you make them work.
Yeah.
And that at the heart of that, and this goes back to my taciturn ways, is the heart of that is actually understanding that it is about people. It's not about just buying a tool or having a process. And also that in many cases we get really obsessed with process when actually it's data that we need to think about.
Man, so many good nuggets in that bit there, Barclay. Look for vendors you can trust who will be true partners to you. The best vendors will say, no, you don't need my tool, right? Like your challenge is not what we solve.
Yes. Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Tough, I know, but I have seen it happen.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, look at what ITIL can already provide in terms of continual service improvement. I look at that stuff and my brain kind of explodes because I see years and years of work. Like there's so much backlog when you start thinking about continual service improvement, that these new shiny things that are flying by, I just kind of giggle.
More exciting.
Yeah. How are we going to leverage ChatGPT to get problem management in place? No, don't even get distracted.
Yeah.
Focus on what you actually need to do, which is deliver great service. Not always easy to do. But I think that's why there's so many good frameworks for this, because people have been trying to struggle with this challenge for decades. And the challenge isn't new,
No, I mean, the challenge is not that much different ultimately, because, and I've been involved for a long time in the industry now, but even then, when I joined the industry, I had done other things first. So I kind of came in and I found this really, really rather poor culture of who are these people that keep bothering us while we're trying to, use our systems to make birthday cards or whatever. And actually, there's something quite important that needs to happen.
Yes.
And then we need to prioritize it, and we need to be generally not rude to them. That's first base really, is just let's not really offend them and insult them as part of what we're doing. So I mean that, and ultimately that it comes down to people, and actually it's about management. I'd call myself a management consultant first and foremost. It is about how you manage, how you inspire, how you lead, how you manage risk, and I don't want to sound like the harbinger of doom by talking about risk and governance, but actually these things are really important. And that when you look at them properly, governance, for example, is about what the organization is trying to do, and are we doing it?
Yes.
And are we taking note of that? My favorite, the 5 dysfunctions, Lencioni and all that stuff. Are we paying attention to results? Are we doing something? Do we have trust with our team and other teams? All that comes from leadership. And, to be very honest, ChatGPT is not going to give you that leadership. Experience management is not going to give it. DevOps isn't going to give it. All those things that are used. ITIL's not going to give you that leadership.
Yeah.
None of those things. They're all tools to do those things, but fundamentally it comes back to that. And unless we're in organizations where they don't have any people at all, which might be the way, I don't know, but unless we do that, then we're going to need people to lead and manage and to inspire and drive and monitor and correct all those kind of things in a positive way. And nobody will that's where I become intractable. Nobody will persuade me otherwise, and you're not going to come up with something that here's the latest framework, or here's the latest thing, or this technology that's going to change management forever. Like, okay, what is it then? Oh, it's somebody from Mars.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a handle on how you manage people. Okay, right. I'll go with that. But otherwise, maybe that's why sometimes I do seem a bit intractable, is that because I'm always going to be going, okay, so how are we going to incorporate, where's the value in it? Where's the risk in it? And what kind of benefit we're going to get for the effort that we put into doing it? And how would we incorporate it in a way that just doesn't throw the baby out with the bathwater, put it that way?
Yeah. Human psychology doesn't change that fast, until we get these Martian sociologists in to teach us the new ways.
Well, it's funny because I was thinking the other day, because it's probably 10 years now since a lot of the conversations that we had when we were doing the previous podcasts, Chris Dancy and all the kind of future stuff. And I've sat in a room where he was presenting and people were crying because of the impact of what he was saying. It was very powerful and so on, but it was still kind of scary from the point. And none of that has happened yet. There's lots of things going on towards it, but we just have to be. I think we just have to be balanced about how we take those things on, and then what we do with it. So back to the start of ChatGPT, exciting, lots of things that we can do with it. But I'm not trembling in my shoes, or whatever it is. However it is, you're supposed to react in a kind of reactionary way, And does this mean that everything else is dead? No.
Of course not. Yeah. Math never went away just because the calculator was invented. Doesn't make sense.
I was fortunate or unfortunate enough to do, philosophy and Descartes. And, that's where you really confront your, how you gain and understand knowledge. If you go back to the cogito and all that sort of thing, you're talking about how do we know anything at all?
Mm-hmm.
And, there's certain levels of things that we can know, maths, logic, and so on, seem to be absolutely, it's impossible to imagine the other way. But the point there was, it could be the way that your brain is that makes you think that. Doesn't mean to say it's not. So then ends up the only thing that you can know is that you're conscious and that you're alive. And that's where I think therefore I am. So it's all nonsense, of course, but it takes you back to a point where you go, right, well, anything that I'm going to imbue as part of my knowledge or understanding, I've got to understand why that is. I've got to use some good practice in terms of my understanding of it and how it works with everything else. Otherwise, it's just another kind of thing that flies through the air. That's exciting. That's interesting. But sorry, I'm Scottish, so I'll just ignore it.
I love it. I love it. You come back. You always come back. You're a full circle guide. And I did want to talk really quickly about sustainable IT, because I think that we had Antonina on, and we've kind of talked about the topic, but I'm curious why you find it interesting, why you find it curious.
I think, it's obviously really important from the environmental point of view. That's a given.
Yeah.
Well, it should be a given. Everybody should understand that.
Yeah.
I think what it has done is it's raised the profile of the concept of sustainability, though, because I don't think maybe we thought, there's, for example, in the corporate world, there's this obsession with growth. We've always got to be growing and building and growing and why can't we just be happy with, getting to a certain level and all right, we need to keep improving and so on, but there's a level for things, and actually, we wouldn't have a functioning world if every corporation just carried on growing and consumed all the resources of the world It would be pointless. So that whole idea of doing things and having a sense of where their sweet spot is, where the balance is, and just at more prosaic level, I suppose sustainability in business terms should be that that it fits with environmental guideline ethics as well. There's we can't just go and kill people to make money. We've got to be doing something that's ethical. Obviously, that it's got to be, something that people want, and then it's going to be something that is either profitable or sustainable from the point of view that it washes its face. It keeps things going. So, in the past, I think sustainable meant either in business, it just meant it works financially, or we are growing with it, or it's an environmental thing. I think these things all, there's convergence of that, and there's an understanding or an appreciation. And I mean, I know that was part of what was in the book that she was involved with, that came out of the ITIL oeuvre. But I mean, that it's just one perspective on it. I do think that we should be thinking more about the big picture. So I mean, that's effectively what we're saying, isn't it? It's growth with ethics, or profit with environmental understanding, or balance with all those things. So how we tame our marketing departments to think about sustainability, and not just as a marketing opportunity. Oh yeah, here's the next latest thing is sustainability. Let's market the hell out of that. Everything else is dead.
Yeah, everything else is dead. Capitalism has died. Sustainability is here.
Growth is dead. Profit is dead. Ethics is dead. It's all about sustainability. Yeah, that replaces everything. But actually,
you heard it here first.
Sorry?
You heard it here first.
Absolutely. Yes, but it's how those things come to. It's another example of actually thinking about what we were talking about earlier on kind of balanced approach to things, particularly new things. So new things you've got to think about, is it going to be sustainable? Is ChatGPT going to deliver something, on the balanced, maybe great productivity offerings, money saving, speed, all that, but actually somewhere at the end of that exhaust chain, people are suffering. So it's not,
we need balance.
It's not right.
Yeah.
If we thought that, actually there was a giant data center in the jungle in Brazil that was running ChatGPT, killing the environment and people and animals, I think most of us would go, well, it's a great idea, but we're not going to do it. And maybe that's a slightly extreme.
I hope it's slightly. I hope it's very extreme.
But that's the stuff of Bond films and those kind of things. There's always some evil dictator somewhere and creating a giant enterprise on an island that's going to take over the world and destroy it at the same time. But it's a similar kind of thing to that. Anything that is new has got to be considered from the point of view of, well, how does it affect everybody? Put it that way.
Yes.
It's almost like I've got some ethics here. It's a bit worrying.
Yeah, watch your back. Good stuff. Barclay, so how can people connect with you and learn more?
They can connect with me through LinkedIn, or I'm still on Twitter actually, or at Barclay Rae on any of those things. And I have barclayrae.com that they can have a look at. I still have I'm just in the process of refreshing all the ITSM goodness stuff. That decided that is quite sustainable, so I'm going to be working on that. But I mean, the thing at the moment is, I don't think I've ever been busier. So somebody said, was it you that said to me, I've been a bit quiet of late? It's just because I'm doing stuff.
Good.
And it's a mixture of new and old.
Excellent.
Sustainable lifestyle to some extent. I think it's good that we don't travel as much, but I do miss travel, and look forward to one or two trips coming up, but the extent that I used to do it compared to what I do now is apocalyptically different.
Yeah.
But it's nice occasionally to go somewhere else. I don't know how's it affected you.
I would say the same. I love to travel. It is a luxury that I typically do not afford myself. However, when I do it, I fall heart first into the culture, into the people, and I love seeing new things and exploring new places. But yeah, I think it's good for us to recognize the luxury that it is.
Definitely, yeah. Today I'm feeling like I glow a bit in the dark because I've had all my jabs. I'm going to India shortly, so I've had loads of jabs, and I'm probably bouncing off the ceiling a little bit. But yeah, I really
thank you for that, Barclay. Thank you.
Yeah, this is me active. This is me excited.
Well, I'm glad that you brought your excitement to Ticket Volume. Thanks for joining us today, Barclay.
My pleasure. Good to see you, Matt.
And for our audience, thanks for listening to this episode. We've got a bunch more out there, and there's more coming, so make sure you subscribe to get an alert when there's a new episode out. You can also submit a specific topic or guest by DMing me, leaving a comment, or just complaining out loud. I'll probably hear it if it's on the internet. And speaking of that, if you like today's podcast and want to share feedback, please leave us a review or comment on this thread. You know that all of these systems, they completely ignore us until you start taking action. So please do that. This podcast is brought to you by InvGate, the all-in-one IT service and asset management system that helps organizations with world-class IT support teams. If you're looking for a solution, because I'm a vendor, to build your help desk, because I'm a vendor, without the headaches of year-long implementations, you're going to love InvGate. It's why I joined them, because IT teams from NASA, Toyota, McDonald's, they saw InvGate and knew that it was easy to manage requests, automate workflows, centralize inventory data, and that gives them the opportunity to deliver better service. Because remember, good service is good business.